There are moments in life when the air just stops moving, like time itself is holding its breath, waiting to see what you'll do next. For me, that moment came on a warm Saturday morning in Dallas, Texas, when I borrowed my wife's phone to order breakfast. Something so innocent, so ordinary, and yet it detonated my entire life. Her phone was on the counter, face up, buzzing with a notification. Emily never left her phone lying around. That alone made me suspicious. I reached for it, thinking I'd just grab us pancakes and coffee from our usual spot, when the screen lit up again. A message preview. Last night was perfect. Can't wait for our next business meeting. Jay. My hand froze midair. I didn't breathe. I didn't blink. The text glared at me like a neon sign screaming betrayal. For a few seconds, I convinced myself it was innocent, maybe a coworker joking. But something in my gut twisted. That primal instinct we all have, the one that doesn't care about logic or excuses. I swiped the screen open. The phone didn't have a passcode. Funny, I always thought that meant trust. I tapped into the Photos app and scrolled. And there it was, the photo that changed everything. Emily, my wife of 8 years, smiling with her head tilted toward a man I didn't recognize. He had his arm around her shoulder like he owned her, holding 2 drinks in his free hand. His grin was all teeth, like he was proud of something I wasn't supposed to know. The photo was taken just 2 nights ago. Thursday, the night she told me she was working late on a project. I felt my stomach drop, like I'd missed a step going down the stairs. My first reaction wasn't rage, it was silence. That kind of deep, bone-deep silence where your heart beats so hard it feels like it's cracking your ribs. I set her phone back exactly where I found it, like it might burn me if I held it a second longer. Emily walked into the kitchen then, still in her pajama shorts, her hair in a messy bun, smiling like she didn't just gut-punch my soul. "Babe, what do you want to do for breakfast?" she asked, completely unaware that I'd just seen everything I needed to see. I looked at her and smiled. A real smile would have hurt too much, so I gave her the fake one, the one that says, everything's fine, when it's absolutely not. "How about pancakes?" I said. My voice sounded weird even to me, but she didn't notice. As she scrolled through her own phone, probably deleting evidence, I watched her like I was seeing her for the first time. How many mornings had I stood here, coffee in hand, trusting her without a second thought? How many times had I brushed off the little things, her sudden interest in late-night meetings, her new perfume, the gym clothes she didn't wear to the gym? Something inside me shifted that morning. I wasn't going to confront her. Not yet. That's what cheaters expect. They expect you to rage, to yell, to throw things. They expect drama. And drama is messy. Drama leaves room for lies, for excuses. No, I was going to be smarter than that. I was going to find the truth, the whole truth. And when I did, I'd burn her entire little secret world to the ground. Later that day, while Emily was running errands, I started my plan. First step, information. I needed to know who Jay was. That was the name on the text, and I'd bet every dollar in my wallet it was the same guy in that photo. I pulled out my laptop, poured a stiff cup of black coffee, and started digging. Her company had a website with a team page. There he was, Jake Huntley, director of sales, married, 2 kids, a man who probably smiled in every church photo while sneaking around behind his wife's back. Perfect. I stared at his corporate headshot for a good minute, memorizing his stupid, smug smile. This wasn't just about Emily anymore. This was about him. He thought he could walk into my life and take something that wasn't his. Oh no. By the time Emily came home, carrying shopping bags and a fake grin, I had already purchased a small GPS tracker online. It would be here Monday. I also ordered 2 tiny Wi-Fi cameras that could be hidden anywhere. "Hey, babe, you okay?" she asked when she walked in, probably noticing I was quieter than usual. "Yeah, just tired," I replied, keeping my voice calm. That night, lying next to her in bed, I stared at the ceiling while she scrolled through her phone with the screen turned away from me. Every laugh she gave, every message she typed, was another nail in the coffin of our marriage. But I didn't move. I didn't speak. I just planned. When she finally fell asleep, I got up, grabbed my notebook, and wrote 3 words: find the truth. The thing about cheaters is they think they're smart. They think they're invisible. They start believing their own little lies until they forget the most important truth. Someone who loves them knows them better than anyone else. That's what Emily didn't get. I knew her patterns. I knew her habits. And the second they started changing, I noticed. The morning after I found the photo, I watched her more closely than I ever had. She floated around the kitchen in a hurry, her phone glued to her hand like it was surgically attached. Normally, she'd leave it on the counter while making coffee or scrolling through recipes. Not anymore. Every time I walked into the room, she'd flip the screen face down, like I hadn't seen that trick 100 times before in bad TV dramas. "Big day at work?" I asked casually, leaning against the fridge. She hesitated, just a fraction of a second, but enough for me to see the gears turning in her head. "Oh, meetings, deadlines, same old grind." Her smile was too polished, too rehearsed, like she was auditioning for the role of faithful wife and forgetting her lines. I nodded, sipping my coffee, pretending to buy it. But my mind was racing. This wasn't just about catching her anymore. This was about understanding how deep this rabbit hole went. Was Jake Huntley just a fling? Or was I looking at something worse? A full-blown affair, the kind of thing that ends marriages and friendships and burns everything to the ground? That night, I paid attention to every detail. How long she spent getting ready in the bathroom. The new perfume she sprayed. Something floral and expensive that I'd never smelled on her before. Her makeup was heavier, her outfit more carefully chosen, even though she said she was just meeting some clients. When she came out wearing a navy dress I didn't even know she owned, my chest tightened. It wasn't the kind of outfit you wear for work. It was the kind you wear when you want someone to notice you. And I couldn't shake the feeling that someone wasn't me. "Wow," I said, forcing a grin. "Big client dinner, huh?" Emily froze for half a beat, then gave me a light laugh. "Yeah, just the usual networking thing. You know how it is." Sure, I thought. Networking. With Jake. I didn't ask questions. I didn't accuse her. Instead, I walked her to the door, kissed her cheek, and told her to have fun. The whole time, my mind was screaming. Every instinct wanted me to grab her wrist and demand the truth. But I didn't. Because if you want real answers, you don't ask liars, you watch them. After she left, I sat down at the kitchen table with my laptop and a notepad. I wrote down everything. Her lies, the changes in her routine, the timestamps. If this thing blew up in court someday, I wanted to have every single piece of evidence lined up like bullets in a magazine. By Monday, my GPS tracker arrived. It was a small, unremarkable black device about the size of a lighter. I waited until Emily hopped in the shower that night, then slipped outside, opened her SUV door, and placed the tracker in a small compartment under the trunk liner. It took less than 2 minutes. She never even knew. The next morning, while she was sipping her almond milk latte, I got my first notification. Her car pinged from a location across town. Not her office. Not the gym she pretended to go to. A coffee shop. And I wasn't naive enough to believe she was suddenly into lattes at 7 a.m. I decided to drive by. From across the street, I saw her through the cafe window. She wasn't alone. There he was. Jake Huntley. In person, he looked exactly like the kind of guy you'd expect a married woman to ruin everything for. Sharp suit. Fake smile. The whole, "I'm a winner" vibe. They sat in the corner, leaning close, talking like two teenagers sharing secrets. I clenched the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. Every second I watched her laugh with him, I felt another part of me turning cold. But I didn't storm in. I didn't make a scene. I just picked up my phone, zoomed in, and started taking pictures. Click. Emily with her hand on his arm. Click. Jake leaning in like he owned her. Click. A smile on her face I hadn't seen in months. By the time she got home that night, I had over a dozen photos. She walked through the door, dropped her purse, and kissed me on the cheek like nothing was wrong. "I grabbed Thai takeout," she chirped. "Figured you'd be too tired to cook." I forced a smile. "That's thoughtful of you." We sat down at the table. She laughed and told stories about work, pretending everything was normal. I nodded along, but inside, I was miles away. My mind was already planning my next move. I knew now that this wasn't just in my head. It was real. It was happening. And I was going to take back control, one quiet step at a time. Some guys explode the moment they smell betrayal. They yell, smash a plate or two, maybe drive off like a maniac to cool down. That's not me. Not anymore. The photo, the cafe meeting, all of it, it didn't make me loud. It made me quiet. And quiet is where the real damage begins. By Tuesday morning, I'd already mapped Emily's entire weekly routine, thanks to the GPS tracker. Every movement was logged on my phone, down to the exact minute she left work, the coffee shops she stopped at, even the back streets she used to avoid traffic. She thought she was unpredictable, but all I saw were patterns that led straight to him. That evening, she breezed through the front door around 9:15 p.m., carrying a bag from Whole Foods and humming like nothing was wrong. Long day? I asked, casually leaning on the kitchen counter. Yeah, these reports are killing me, she sighed, brushing a strand of hair from her face. I thought I'd pick up some fresh pasta for dinner tomorrow. Fresh pasta? Sure. According to my tracker, she'd spent the last hour not at Whole Foods, but at a Marriott hotel downtown. I could see the location pings, every stop she made, like a breadcrumb trail leading to the truth. I forced a warm smile. Sounds great. Inside, I felt like someone had dumped ice water into my veins. But I didn't let her see it. Not yet. The next step was cameras. I'd bought 2 small Wi-Fi cameras disguised as USB chargers. The kind that records silently, stores everything on a cloud drive, and can be checked in real time from an app. I installed the first one in the living room near the TV and the second one in the hallway. She'd never noticed them. She barely noticed me lately. Wednesday evening, I caught my first real footage. Emily was on the couch, her phone tilted just enough for the camera to capture the reflection of her messages. I zoomed in on the live feed from my phone in the garage. I couldn't read every word, but I caught enough. Friday night works. Same place? I can't wait to see you. My hand tightened around the phone until I thought I'd cracked the screen. That was it. Confirmation. Friday. The hotel. Thursday. I played the role of the perfect husband. I cooked her favorite dinner, steak with garlic butter and a Caesar salad. I listened as she talked about her work deadlines, even nodded when she complained about her demanding boss. The irony almost made me laugh. If only Jake knew how much of my life I'd dedicated to that dinner, how much rage I swallowed with every bite. Later that night, she kissed me goodnight with that sweet, fake smile of hers. And as soon as she fell asleep, I grabbed my notebook and wrote down the plan. Step 1. Follow her Friday night. Step 2. Get undeniable evidence. Step 3. Make her world crumble. Friday arrived like a storm brewing on the horizon. She spent an hour getting ready. Full makeup, the black dress I hadn't seen in months, high heels, and that perfume that no longer smelled like home. She looked stunning, and it made me sick. She wasn't dressing for me. Going out with the team to celebrate, she said casually while grabbing her clutch. One of the managers is having a birthday dinner. I smiled, like the clueless husband she thought I was. Have fun. Don't stay out too late. The moment her car left the driveway, I followed. I kept my distance, trailing her SUV through the downtown streets until she pulled into the Marriott parking garage. My tracker app confirmed it, same location as Wednesday. I parked across the street, waited 10 minutes, and then saw them. Emily, stepping out of her car, and Jake, already there, leaning against his black sedan. He looked like every cliché of a midlife crisis. Expensive watch, overconfident grin. She walked straight into his arms. For a second, my vision went blurry. Rage boiled up so fast I had to grip the steering wheel just to stop myself from doing something stupid. But I stayed put. Instead, I pulled out my phone and took photos. Dozens of them. Every hug, every laugh, every moment that would one day destroy her lies. When they disappeared into the hotel lobby, I didn't follow them in. Not yet. That would come later. Tonight was about proof, not confrontation. Tonight was about building the case that would crush them both. By the time Emily came home past midnight, I was sitting on the couch watching ESPN, acting like I hadn't just followed her to a hotel and seen everything. Fun night? I asked without looking away from the TV. Yeah, great time with the team, she said, kicking off her heels. You should have come. I smiled faintly. Maybe next time. She didn't even notice the cold edge in my voice. And that's when I knew. I had her exactly where I wanted her. There's a saying, if you want to hit someone where it hurts, you don't go for the face, you go for the life they've built. That's where the real damage happens. Jake Huntley had just stepped into my crosshairs, and I wasn't going to miss. Saturday morning, while Emily slept off her late night with coworkers, I sat in my office with my laptop open and a fresh cup of coffee. I typed Jake's name into every search engine, every social media platform, and every public records database I could access. Within an hour, I had more dirt than I expected. Married for 11 years to a woman named Sarah Huntley. 2 kids, both under 10. A house in the suburbs of Plano. He looked like the kind of guy who probably bragged about his perfect family at the company holiday party while sneaking texts to my wife under the table. But I wasn't going to just call Sarah and blow everything up. No, that would be too easy, too fast, and I wasn't ready for the final move yet. I wanted Jake to feel the ground shake before the floor dropped out from under him. Step 1. Learn his patterns. If I was going to bring this man down, I needed to know him like I knew Emily. His work hours, his habits, the way he moved. People like Jake, guys who think they're untouchable, are always sloppy somewhere. So I started following him. On Monday, after Emily left for work, I drove downtown and parked across from his building. I watched him strut out of the glass doors like he owned the place. Tailored suit, sunglasses, phone in hand. He walked like a man who'd never been caught. At 12:30 sharp, he left for lunch. I trailed him 2 blocks to a sleek cafe, watching as he sat at a corner table, scrolling on his phone, smiling like he had a secret. My hands tightened on the steering wheel, imagining him texting Emily right then. By Wednesday, I knew his schedule, and by 8:45, lunch at 12:30, gym by 6 p.m., and, most interesting of all, he left the office almost every Friday at 4 o'clock sharp. That was likely when their little meetings happened. Step 2. Find the cracks. I dug into his digital life next. His LinkedIn profile was polished to perfection, but his old social media accounts? Not so much. I found a Twitter account he hadn't used in years, still linked to his email. From there, I traced a few forgotten accounts, Pinterest boards, an old Reddit handle. Most of it was harmless, but I noticed something that made me smirk. Jake liked to post selfies from the gym, tagging his location. The guy was basically giving me his entire routine on a silver platter. I downloaded every picture I could find of him and Emily together. The ones I'd taken outside the Marriott were already damning, but I wanted a complete file. Dates, times, locations. The kind of evidence you can't argue with. By Thursday night, I had a folder labeled The Huntley Problem on my computer. Inside were screenshots, photos, and a detailed log of every suspicious move Emily and Jake had made in the past 2 weeks. That weekend, Emily suggested we go out for dinner. Just us, she said with that soft smile she used when she wanted to look innocent. Sounds great, I replied, hiding the storm brewing inside me. At the restaurant, she reached across the table, touching my hand like nothing was wrong. You've been quiet lately. Everything okay? I stared at her for a moment, almost laughing. Everything okay? I'd seen her kissing her boss in front of a hotel. I'd tracked her car, her lies, her late-night texts. Everything was not okay, but I wasn't going to show my hand yet. Yeah, I said calmly. Just work stuff? She nodded, probably relieved that I didn't push. And that was perfect. The more comfortable she felt, the bigger the shock when her world collapsed. Step 3. Corporate sabotage. Sunday night, I drafted an anonymous email to the HR department at Jake's company. I didn't send it yet, but I wrote every word like a scalpel. Attached is a series of photos taken during what appears to be a company-sponsored event. They depict a senior manager, Jake Huntley, in a romantic relationship with a subordinate, Emily Parker. The images suggest a breach of company policy regarding workplace conduct. I saved it as a draft. Not yet, I told myself. Timing was everything. When the moment was right, that email would explode like a grenade in both their lives. By Monday morning, I had another piece of the puzzle. A friend of mine, Nate, worked in IT at a different branch of Emily's company. I called him under the guise of casual conversation. Hey, you know a guy named Jake Huntley? I asked. Nate chuckled. Oh, that guy? Yeah, I've heard stories. Smooth talker. Bit of a ladies' man, if you know what I mean. Why? I smiled to myself. Exactly what I needed. Jake's reputation wasn't spotless, and I'd use that to my advantage. Just curious, I said. Thanks, man. That night, Emily left her phone unattended for the first time in days. I picked it up like it was nothing, just to check the time. In reality, I opened her messages and snapped screenshots of every conversation with Jake. Jake, Friday was amazing. I can't stop thinking about you. Emily, me too. I wish we didn't have to sneak around. Sneak around. The words hit me like a hammer, but instead of anger, I felt calm. Because now I had everything I needed. Monday morning started with a quiet smile on my face. While Emily rushed out the door with her, I'll be late tonight. Excuse, I was watching the countdown on my email scheduler. At 9 a.m. sharp, my anonymous email, complete with photos, timestamps, and a polite suggestion to review company policy, landed in the inbox of HR and the CEO of Jake Huntley's firm. I didn't have to wait long. By 10:15, I received the first breadcrumb. Emily texted me. "Emily, we're having some unexpected meetings today. I might be late." "Sure you are." I pictured Jake, sitting red-faced in some glass conference room, trying to explain why he was kissing his subordinate outside a Marriott. The photos I sent weren't just suggestive, they were brutal. A close-up of his hand on Emily's waist, her laughing with her head tilted back, him leaning in, their lips just inches apart. Corporate policy nightmares all wrapped up in one neat package. By noon, I got my first real confirmation. I'd set up an alert system through a friend in IT, Nate, the guy who already hinted that Jake had a reputation. At 12:04 p.m., Nate texted me. "Nate, dude, your guy Huntley is in deep trouble. Emergency HR meeting. CEO's there. Looks bad." I stared at the message, the corners of my mouth curling into a grin. This was only phase one. Emily's cracks started to show. When she got home that night, she was a different woman. Her hair was messy, her smile forced, her voice an octave too high. "Hey, babe," she said, tossing her keys onto the counter. "Crazy day at work. You wouldn't believe it. Total chaos." I gave her a sympathetic nod. "Oh yeah? What happened?" She hesitated. "Oh, just some HR stuff. People gossiping. You know how offices are." I wanted to laugh. She had no idea that the gossip started because of me. Instead, I poured her a glass of wine and said, "Well, I'm sure it'll blow over." Meanwhile, Jake was already spiraling. On Tuesday morning, I parked across from his office building again. At 8:50, he walked in. No sunglasses this time, no swagger. He looked like a man walking to the gallows. 2 hours later, he stormed out with his jacket over his shoulder, yelling into his phone. I took a photo of that too. By 3 p.m., I got another update from Nate. "Nate, HR pulled Emily in for questioning today. They're investigating Huntley. It's bad, man." Perfect. I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. But then I remembered those texts. I wish we didn't have to sneak around. Sneak around. My jaw tightened, and all sympathy evaporated. The pressure starts to break her. That evening, Emily was quieter than usual. She kept glancing at her phone, biting her lip. I sat on the couch pretending to watch TV, sipping whiskey, every sense tuned to her unease. "Something wrong?" I asked casually. She shook her head too quickly. "No, just tired." Liar. Phase 2 begins. Wednesday, I doubled down. I sent another anonymous tip to HR, this time attaching screenshots of texts between Emily and Jake. Nothing too explicit, just enough to prove a pattern. Company liability is a powerful phrase when HR sees it. I knew they'd have to take drastic action. At 11 a.m., Nate sent another text. "Nate, Huntley's on paid leave pending investigation." Emily looked like she was about to faint when they announced it. Good. Let her sweat. That night, she tried to test me. "Babe," she said, twirling her fork over dinner. "You've been so sweet lately. I feel like I don't deserve you." I smiled and leaned forward, gently brushing her hand. "Of course, you deserve me. Why wouldn't you?" Her eyes darted away, and I knew I'd hit a nerve. She was starting to realize that the foundation under her feet was cracking, but she didn't know where the cracks were coming from. Not yet. Jake takes the fall. By Friday, Jake was officially suspended. I watched him leave his office building with a cardboard box of his things, looking like a broken man. He paused on the sidewalk, scanning his phone as if searching for a lifeline. I almost wanted to wave from across the street, but I didn't. My satisfaction was silent. Emily came home that night looking pale. "Work has been insane," she muttered, sinking onto the couch. "Oh yeah?" I asked, handing her a glass of wine. "Anything I should know about?" She shook her head, too fast. "No, just stressful." By Sunday, she was practically walking on eggshells, unsure if I knew anything. And that was exactly how I wanted her, nervous, paranoid, guessing. Because the next phase wasn't just about Jake losing his job. It was about Emily watching her carefully constructed world collapse piece by piece, until she realized she'd been dancing on a trapdoor the entire time. There's a particular kind of silence that feels like power. It's the silence of knowing you're 3 moves ahead of everyone else, while they're still trying to figure out the rules of the game. That's where I was now. Jake was out of the picture, suspended, humiliated, probably explaining his business meetings to his wife, Sarah. But Emily? She still thought she could dance between the raindrops. She had no idea I was about to pull the umbrella away. I started with the money. Every relationship leaves a paper trail: bank accounts, shared credit cards, automatic payments. And when someone is lying, that trail turns into a gold mine. I spent Monday morning combing through every transaction on our joint accounts. There it was: charges from a luxury lingerie store I'd never heard of, hotel receipts from places I hadn't been in months, and random purchases like expensive wine and fancy dinners she'd claimed were for team outings. My jaw tightened as I scrolled through the statements, but I wasn't just angry. I was calculating. I called our bank and, using my rights as the primary account holder, quietly transferred 70% of our funds into a new personal account in my name only. I also canceled the joint credit card, requesting a replacement that would arrive directly to my office. She wouldn't notice right away. Most people don't track every penny. But when the time came, she'd find herself broke, with no safety net. The lawyer call. Next, I called an old college friend, Chris, who worked as a divorce attorney in Dallas. Hypothetically, I said, if a guy had proof of his wife's affair, how much leverage would he have in Texas? Chris laughed dryly. Hypothetically? A lot. Especially if the evidence is solid: photos, texts, timestamps. Texas is not kind to cheating spouses in divorce court. Good, I said. I'll be in touch. By that evening, I'd already emailed him a PDF containing everything: screenshots of texts, GPS logs, and photos from the hotel. My insurance was now legal ammunition. Emily's spending habits became my weapon. On Tuesday, she mentioned over dinner, we should take a trip this summer. Maybe Cabo. Just the two of us. I smiled. Sounds great. We'll have to plan for it. Inside, I was already canceling her passport renewal that she'd applied for. Yes, I did that. It's amazing what you can handle online when you share an address and have all the right security answers. By the time she found out, she'd be standing at an airport wondering why her travel plans had suddenly collapsed. The trick was to stay normal, so I doubled down on the sweet husband act. I brought home flowers on Wednesday. I cooked dinner on Thursday. I even told her, "You look amazing lately. What's your secret?" She giggled and kissed me, but I noticed the tension in her shoulders. She could feel something was off. She just didn't know what. Then I planted the seed of doubt. Friday morning, while she was showering, I left my laptop open on the kitchen counter, displaying a fake email draft with the subject line, "Property Transfer Agreement." I knew she'd see it when she grabbed her coffee. I made sure to leave the house early for work, pretending to forget it there. When I came home that evening, she was unusually quiet. "Everything okay?" I asked. She forced a smile. "Yeah, just tired." "Right. Sure you are." I began separating everything we owned. That weekend, I spent hours going through our home office, gathering documents, deeds, car titles, investment statements. I wasn't just protecting myself. I was building a firewall so high she wouldn't be able to climb over it even if she tried. By Sunday night, I'd updated my will, changed the beneficiaries on my life insurance, and even set up a trust fund that bypassed her entirely. Emily Parker was about to lose not just her fake, happily ever after, but every financial foothold she thought she had. She noticed something was wrong. Sunday evening, she came up behind me while I was sorting papers. "What are you working on?" she asked, her tone overly casual. "Just some finance stuff," I replied, slipping the folder shut. "Taxes, investments. Boring adult things." She smiled, but her eyes were scanning my desk like a hawk. She was starting to suspect something, but by the time she figured it out, it would be far too late. I wasn't just taking her money and security. I was setting the stage for a reveal that would rip her entire reality apart. I'd already reserved a private dining room for next Saturday. A nice dinner. Intimate. And on the guest list? Emily, of course. Jake and his wife, Sarah. And a few of our closest friends. They would all be there when I played the footage. The cameras. The texts. Every filthy lie exposed on a big screen. The most satisfying revenge is the one that looks like kindness until the last second. Emily had no clue what I was planning, and that was the beauty of it. By Friday, I'd finalized everything: the guest list, the reservations, and the tech setup for the most devastating reveal of her life. The private dining room I reserved wasn't just for a nice dinner, it was my stage. I spent Thursday night at the restaurant, Meeting with the manager, a guy named Tony who owed me a favor. I explained that I wanted a special slideshow to play for our friends, something personal. He didn't ask questions. People rarely do when you tip big. I tested the projector and sound system myself, connecting it to my laptop. On the desktop sat a folder labeled Memories. Inside were all the photos and video clips from the hidden cameras. The truth, ready to detonate. I started with Emily. "Babe," I said on Friday morning while she sipped her latte, "I thought it would be nice to host a little get-together tomorrow. Just dinner with friends, something low-key. You up for it?" She smiled, a bit surprised. "That sounds nice." "Sure. Who's coming?" "Oh, just a few close people. You'll see." What I didn't tell her was that Jake and his wife, Sarah, were also invited. I had called Sarah on Thursday evening. She didn't know me, but when I told her who I was and what I had to share, she was more than willing to come. Her voice on the phone was ice cold. "Show me," she said. "Oh, I will," I replied. Saturday afternoon, Emily spent hours getting ready, probably excited about this surprise dinner. She wore a black dress that I knew wasn't for me, paired with that expensive perfume. As she twirled in front of the mirror, she smiled. "You're full of surprises lately," she teased. I smiled back. "You have no idea." The guests arrived at 7 p.m. Our closest friends filled the room with laughter and chatter. Emily was radiant, laughing louder than usual, playing the perfect wife. At 7:15, Jake and Sarah arrived. Emily's face froze for half a second when she saw them, but she covered it with a bright smile. "Oh, Jake. What a surprise," she said, her voice just a little too high. "Small world," I said casually, shaking Jake's hand with a grip that made him flinch. Sarah gave Emily a polite but icy smile. Dinner was beautiful. Steak, wine, the works. I let Emily relax, let her believe this was just another charming evening. Then, as dessert was served, I stood up. "Before we wrap up, I wanted to share a little slideshow," I said, clicking the remote. A look back at some recent memories. The first photo appeared on the big screen. Emily and Jake, outside the Marriott, his hand on her waist. The room went dead silent. Emily's fork clattered to her plate. "Michael, what is this?" I clicked again. A video clip played, her on the couch at home, laughing at Jake's texts, the reflection clear on her phone screen. Jake's face turned pale. Sarah's jaw tightened as she crossed her arms. "Just a few highlights from the last couple of weeks," I said calmly. "I thought everyone should see how close we've all become." Emily's voice shook. "Michael, can we talk about this privately?" "Oh, no," I said, my voice steady. "No more secrets. Everyone here deserves to know who you really are." Jake tried to speak, but Sarah shut him down with a glare sharp enough to cut glass. "We're done," she hissed. The room was thick with tension. Emily's face went from red to white. "Michael, please, this isn't what it looks like." I laughed. "Really?" "Because it looks exactly like what it is." I let the slideshow roll for another minute, photo after photo, timestamp after timestamp. Every lie, every late-night meeting, every secret kiss. It was all there. When it ended, nobody said a word. Sarah stood up first. "Jake, get your things," she snapped, storming out. Jake followed, looking like his life had just ended. Emily turned to me, tears pooling in her eyes. "Why would you do this? Here? Like this?" "Because you didn't deserve quiet," I said coldly. "You didn't deserve my silence anymore." Our friends awkwardly excused themselves, leaving Emily and me alone in the wreckage of what used to be our marriage. I stood, buttoning my jacket. "I'll be staying at a hotel tonight. You can pack your things tomorrow. Oh, and don't bother checking the bank accounts. You won't find much." Her mouth opened, but no words came. For the first time, she was speechless. There's something oddly satisfying about silence after a storm. The dinner, the slideshow, the lies exposed. It all left Emily sitting in the ruins of the life she thought she controlled. I didn't need to yell or curse. My silence said everything. She knew the game was over. She just didn't know how bad the final round would be. I checked into a downtown hotel that night. While Emily sat alone at our house, probably crying and frantically texting Jake, who, by the way, wasn't answering because Sarah had likely thrown him out. I was lying in crisp white sheets, sipping whiskey, and reviewing my next moves. The next morning, I woke up with a clear head and a plan sharper than ever. At 8 a.m., I called Chris, my divorce attorney friend. "It's time," I said. "Understood," Chris replied. With the evidence you sent me, this will be clean and quick. She'll have no leverage. Music to my ears. By Monday, the divorce papers were ready. I had them delivered to Emily by a professional process server, someone she couldn't ignore. I imagine her face when she opened the door to that envelope. Shock, fear, maybe even anger. But she had no ground to stand on. The evidence was ironclad. Infidelity, financial misconduct, even proof she'd spent our money on her little affair. In Texas, adultery doesn't just ruin trust. It ruins your settlement. Chris made sure of that. The papers were written so that she'd walk away with nothing. No alimony, no slice of my savings, not even the house. I'd already secured every account, transferred the property titles, and locked her out of anything that carried my name. She would leave with her clothes, her perfume, and the memories of a life she destroyed. Meanwhile, Jake was unraveling faster than a cheap sweater. Nate kept me updated with every juicy detail. HR had wrapped up their investigation and politely encouraged Jake to resign. Translation: his career was toast. Sarah, I heard, wasn't just leaving him. She was going after the house and full custody of their kids. I almost felt bad for the guy. Almost. Emily called me that Tuesday night, her voice trembling. Michael, please, can we talk? I made a mistake. I don't want to lose you. I almost laughed. A mistake? No, Emily. Leaving the stove on is a mistake. What you did is a choice. And now you get to live with it. Wednesday afternoon, I agreed to meet her at a coffee shop, not out of kindness, but closure. She walked in looking like a ghost. No makeup, hair a mess, eyes swollen from crying. Michael, she whispered, sitting across from me. I don't know what I was thinking. It didn't mean anything. I still love you. I sipped my coffee, calm and collected. You love me? You loved me when you were sneaking off to hotels. You loved me when you lied every night. Tears rolled down her cheeks. Please, I'll do anything to fix this. I leaned forward, my voice low but firm. You can start by signing the papers. This isn't revenge, Emily. This is freedom, for me. She stared at me, realizing there was no way back. For the first time, I saw her understand that I was no longer the man she could manipulate. I was done. By Friday, she'd signed the papers. Jake was out of a job, his family shattered. And Emily? She was moving out of the house, stuffing her clothes into cardboard boxes, while I watched from the doorway with a strange sense of calm. Goodbye, Michael, she muttered, not meeting my eyes. I nodded. Goodbye, Emily. No anger. No drama. Just the quiet satisfaction of knowing I'd played my game perfectly. That weekend, I sat in my now empty house, sipping whiskey, feeling lighter than I had in years. I wasn't sad. I wasn't even angry anymore. I was free, and I knew this was just the beginning of something better. Freedom doesn't arrive with fireworks or a marching band. It creeps in quietly, like sunlight breaking through blinds after a long, dark night. That's how I felt waking up in my empty house the week after Emily left. The silence, once heavy, now felt clean, fresh, like I could finally hear my own thoughts again. The first thing I did was change everything. New locks, new furniture, even a new bed. That old mattress had seen too many lies. I donated her clothes to charity, boxed up her random things, and erased every trace of her presence. It wasn't bitterness, it was therapy. I started running every morning, something I hadn't done in years. At first, it was just to clear my head, but soon I realized I was shedding not just pounds, but pieces of the life I no longer wanted. The betrayal stopped weighing me down. For the first time in months, I could sit on the couch without tension. I'd watch a game with a beer in hand, knowing I didn't have to question who was texting who, or what work event was actually happening. The constant paranoia? Gone. I even found myself laughing again. Real laughter. The kind that sneaks up on you when you realize the worst is over, and the only direction left is forward. About 2 weeks later, I got a message from Sarah Huntley, Jake's now ex-wife. Thank you, she wrote. You saved me years of living a lie. I'm sorry for what Emily did to you, but I'm grateful you showed me the truth. We met for coffee that weekend, not as two broken people, but as survivors. We talked about betrayal, about how both Jake and Emily had underestimated us. By the time we parted ways, we were both smiling. It wasn't romantic, not yet, but it was a reminder that not everyone in this world is a liar. People ask if I regret it, exposing Emily the way I did, dragging Jake's mess into the open. The answer is no. Revenge isn't about cruelty, it's about balance. They tipped the scale when they lied, when they took without giving. I just set things straight. And I'll tell you this, revenge, when done right, doesn't feel like anger. It feels like closure. A month after Emily was gone, I stood on the porch of my house with a sense of pride. It wasn't a battlefield anymore, it was mine again. I'd planted new flowers out front, repainted the living room, even hung a few photos from my college days. It felt like home for the first time in years. One evening, I sat on the back deck with a whiskey in hand, watching the sunset bleed into the horizon. My phone buzzed. It was Sarah. Dinner tomorrow? I'd like that, I replied. And for once, I didn't feel the need to second-guess a simple text. It was honest. Pure. I don't think much about Emily now. She tried calling a few times, sending apologetic emails that I never opened. Maybe she's with someone new, maybe not. That's her problem. I've learned that once someone shows you who they really are, you don't ask them to be anything else. You let them go. I'm not the man I was before all this. I'm sharper now, stronger, and I've got a radar for lies that could rival the CIA. But I'm also lighter, happier. Revenge didn't break me. It rebuilt me. The end. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and share your thoughts in the comments. Did he do the right thing?